Hi Raghu. So we are done with the budget speech today. Not such a long one, no? Like some of the previous ones.
Yeah. It's interesting. It was over in 90 minutes.
Correct. But it felt long, you know.
It felt long because she was going too much into details in the part A of the budget speech, right? Focusing too much on nitty-gritties of the various schemes and other things.
Right.
But I guess on the whole, the budget was an interesting one. It didn't have an overarching theme like normally it has. But I thought some of the proposals are good, especially when it comes to MSMEs, rationalization of capital gains taxes, interesting proposals of support for Andhra Pradesh and Bihar. But you know what? I was rather disappointed that there's nothing for the middle class in the budget. I had expected some support for the middle class. You and I, we pay taxes through our noses, right?
Yeah.
And I was expecting that there will be some relief for middle class taxpayers. And she did raise expectations when at the initial stage of the speech, she said, there is middle class focus in the budget. Unfortunately, I didn't find any.
Yes, I don't mind if they give all the tax benefits under the new tax regime. But the least I was expecting was that the initial slab will be lifted to say 5 lakh. But that didn't happen and it stayed at 3 lakh. So going to the very big picture part, I mean, the numbers look good, right? Because they are sticking to a fiscal consolidation and saying we'll stay with the 4.9% deficit.
True.
And this is despite the electoral outcome and people were expecting populism, etc. So how do you think she's managed this balance between populism and this maintaining this consolidation? Yeah.
It's interesting how she's managed the numbers. If you look at it closely, she's kept the capital expenditure budget at 11 lakh crores, the same number as the interim budget. Of course, she was helped a lot, I think, by the RBI dividend, the hefty dividend that the RBI paid, some of which has gone into beefing up this. But I think a large part of it has also gone in revenue expenditure.
Correct.
There's an increase across several schemes. And she has been supported by a cut in subsidies. Right. Subsidies for food, fertilizer, oil and gas has gone down sharply.
Yeah.
So that's been a major factor in her numbers. And if you look at allocations for some of the other schemes like Annadata Yojana, that has also gone down, possibly because they expect that the procurement prices will be lower this year for rice and wheat. It's a medley of several things. You know, if you look at the numbers, scheme allocations, for instance, railways. There's a cut across allocations for capital expenditure in doubling of tracks, electrifying rail lines. The only place where there's an increase is in signaling. Thankfully, that's a safety measure. Even procurement of bogies, it remains flat, the same as the interim budget. So she has not increased allocations to the railways in a significant manner. Overall allocations to the railways will go up because of revenue considerations, revenue expenditure, pensions and salaries and other expenses. But capital expenditure, from what I could see initially, they don't look very impressive for the railways. So it's she's managed to keep fiscal deficit under control by both large help from RBI dividends, good revenues, and control over expenditure.
Right. And the defense budget is flat, right? That's also an intriguing thing.
That's very intriguing, considering that defense is now so important for the country, given the hostility around our neighborhood. It remains exactly where it was in the last year's budget. So it's a bit disappointing. A lot of comment on that already coming out, that defense has been given a short shrift.
Right. So coming to the part which had this market behaving like a seesaw. So if you noticed, in the first 1 hour, 15 minutes of the speech, it was very bored and the Nifty was trading in a very narrow range. Then suddenly when she started talking about capital gains, it went through a big fall and then it has pulled back now. So the capital gains googly has been one of the things which is bound to actually overshadow some of the more long-term moves in the budget.
But what exactly has she done in capital gains? Is it increase in long-term capital gains, or is it a rationalization as the minister and the finance secretary are claiming in the press conference?
So there is an increase for equity investors and there is a rationalization for others. So earlier the capital gains tax had two components. There was the period for which you are required to hold it to be termed as long term. So in equities, for example, if you hold equities for 1 year and sell it after that, it becomes long term capital gains. If you hold it for less than 1 year, it becomes short term. Similarly, for bonds and real estate and all, that holding period was 36 months. But now what they've done is they've done a rationalization where they're saying all listed securities, if you hold them for less than 1 year, they will be short term, more than 1 year will be long term. Similarly, all the unlisted instruments, the short term will be below 24 months and long term will be over 24 months. So that is the first part. The second part is what they've done with the rates. So for equities, they've lifted the long-term capital gains tax as well as short-term capital gains tax. So long-term they were charging 10%, now it's 12.5. Short-term they were charging 15%, now it's 20%. But for all the other instruments, what has happened is very important move is this removal of indexation for property and gold. So as you know, all of us who probably held a home or something for many years and have sold it, so we get to adjust our cost for this inflation over the years, and we end up paying a 20% tax only on the remaining amount that we make as profit. Now they are proposing to do away with this inflation indexation, and as a small sop they are telling you that instead of 20% you pay a 12.5% tax on
But
this.
Is it correct? I heard the finance secretary say without indexation 12.5%, the tax incidence is lower than with indexation at 20%.
That's a slightly contentious thing. I think it would depend on the individual, how long he's been invested, what is the actual rate at which he's earned appreciation. Now, I'm sure if your property has been appreciating at a very high rate, we do know of cases where your land goes up, say, 100x or 150x. I think in those cases, I think this loss of inflation thing will hurt you is what I feel. Of course, we have to run the calculations and see.
Maybe they could have spared one used house or from this complex calculations.
Perhaps, yes, even I feel so. I mean, self-occupied home is not really a speculative investment. You do need it to live in it. So perhaps on that, the capital gains, the indexation part, maybe they should have just left it as it is and not tinkered with it.
That's the sad part is, this LTCG rationalization has overtaken and pushed into the background some of the good aspects of the budget.
Yeah.
Like for instance, MSMEs.
Absolutely.
She's done brought in that credit guarantee scheme, which is very good for MSMEs, right?
Yes.
So it's equivalent to what we had during the COVID period in ECLGS.
Yes.
So MSMEs are going to benefit from that in terms of getting support for their expenditure. So that's a good thing. But she's also done something for employees, new employees, for generating employment. So what do you think of that?
So those proposals are a bit vague as yet, in the sense they are saying that in certain cases where employees are joining organizations where they are enrolling with the EPFO, the government will be contributing 3,000 rupees to the EPF contribution of these employees in the initial years. Apart from this, there are also two other schemes where they are incentivizing employers, and they are sort of saying that for employees with salaries of up to 1 lakh, they'll give some certain support. But there the details as well as allocations are not very clear. So it's hard to say what impact they'll have.
Yeah. We'll have to watch how it pans out.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to note that at least they're taking some efforts in the space, unlike earlier. And did you notice a close similarity between a point made in the Congress manifesto about supporting first-time employees who are getting into a first job and basic income support? So the government has come up with something similar. This up to 15,000 rupees in 3 installments to a first-time employee who registered under the EPFO earning less than 1 lakh.
Yeah.
This is very similar to what the Congress had in its
Yeah,
manifesto.
absolutely. Yes.
It's
yes.
not the same, but it's very similar.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, the other interesting part is this government is dependent on the support of allies from Bihar and Andhra Pradesh, right? So, did you
I
notice?
found quite a few mentions of those too.
Exactly.
But what are they getting exactly?
Oh, quite a lot of money. And I suspect Bihar is walking away with bigger share than Andhra Pradesh.
Now,
But
will we
Andhra
see
Pradesh
some
is-
friction on that? I mean,
I hope not. But if you look at Andhra Pradesh, it's getting 15,000 crores support for its new capital. And there is assurance of support for the Polavaram irrigation project as well. And for various other, backward area development in Kadapa and other districts. And plus the promise of support from the government for multilateral loans for its various projects. Bihar is got under various heads, right? Under tourism, under flood mitigation, and of course, development of religious places.
Yeah.
So Bihar, I suspect, has got more than Andhra Pradesh in this deal.
okay.
But it is interesting to see how the government had to, while watching the budget speech, I found it amusing. Suddenly, the government seems to have woken up to Bihar and
The
Northeast
potential of Bihar and the tourism.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an interesting budget, but on the whole, how do you rate it on the whole?
See, on this fiscal consolidation part, I think everything was expected and they got that extra bonus from RBI also. So, this year you can't really praise them to the skies for sticking to the fiscal consolidation path. I feel they could have really done more for middle class taxpayers, and it is about time that first slab of that 3 lakh is really revised. It's been very long. The standard deduction of 25,000 rupees and these minor tweaks
Extra
to the
25,000, from
extra
50 to 75.
Yeah, extra, and this minor tweaks to the slab where the FM herself is saying that the total benefit to the taxpayer is 17,500 rupees under the new regime, that too. Not very exciting on that score, I feel.
That's precisely you mirror my thoughts on this, Aarti. I feel though this budget has a lot of things to commend itself about, the one fact that they focused on long-term capital gains, and the second that there is nothing in it for the middle class in terms of a tax break or incentives or something that will drive the middle class to consume more, which is important for the economy, right? So that is absent. These are the two minus points that I see in the budget. But sadly, these 2 points overshadow the good ones.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But maybe the tax work is set apart for the next budget, which is just 6 months away, 6-7 months away. Maybe it's for that. And also, the finance minister also referred to how they'll study and review the direct tax.
I'm pinning my hopes on that. Yes.
Let's hope. Let's hope the next time we discuss the budget, we'll have something to cheer about for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bye.
Yeah, see you.